So we have defined wealth and capital, and I guess the definition of capital goods evolves with the development of technology and social changes. For example, when we speak of capital today, we can think of a few things such as rental yielding properties, machineries and plants and equipment, and things like that. The core of capital is that it generates more wealth and capital in the future. And if we think about the most important capital for human survival, what is it? Well, I guess it's grain. Well, it must be true, even in today's society, although we don't always think about it anymore. Now, in ancient China, grain is not only a consumption good, but also counted as a crucial capital good, as the survival of people depends on it, right? So the first and foremost task of country governance and economic management is to make the supply of grains sufficient and stable. Look, the key word here is stability. In the chapter of rural regulation in the Book of Rites, Confucius illustrates the principles of grain accumulation as follows. He makes the following remarks about the grain capital like this. If in a state there is not an accumulation of savings sufficient for 9 years, the condition is called one of inefficiency. If there is not enough for 6 years, the condition is called one of urgency. If there is not a saving sufficient for 3 years, then the state cannot continue. So from a country governance perspective, the state government is responsible to monitor the sufficiency of the vital element of survival of the people. Because of the development of human society, there are also other important resources such as oil, natural gas, iron, and a number of minerals and things like that. With the development of technology and society, depending on the speed of production, the number of years of surplus can vary, but I guess the principle is very much the same. Now, based on the social condition of his time, Confucius also gave a guidance on how to achieve grain capital accumulation. Generally, based on the relative speed of harvesting and consumption for every 3 years of farming, there will be 1 year of overplus accumulated. Therefore, for every 9 years of farming, there will be 3 years of overplus accumulated. And likewise, for every 30 years of farming, there will be 10 years of surplus accumulated. And this is called consumption smoothening. It means that consumption of grain should not be too much higher than necessary during the good years, so that there is sufficient supply of grain during the bad years. Now, it's important to understand, that although this guidance of grain accumulation is discussed at a state level, it also applies to family and individual level. In the Han Dynasty, for example, the theory of grain capital accumulation was put into practice. In his proposal to the emperor, Jia Yi mentioned that capital will diminish to zero if the production of wealth is surpassed by consumption. In ancient times, grain is the most fundamental capital, and we call agriculture the primary business, right? In Jia Yi's time, people ran away from the primary. Well, I guess the reason Jia Yi made that proposal, is that during his time, people ran away from the primary business and turned to commerce and other industries. What's the result? Well, this led to a luxurious habit of consumption and insufficiency in food production. So Jia Yi pointed out the dangers of this situation and an imminent fall of the empire if the situation continued. So, in order to drive people back to the field, Jia Yi proposed a policy that allowed people to take ownership of their own agricultural produce. Now, of course, in today's global economy, it's not necessary for every country to engage in primary business involving, agriculture and or the extraction and collection of natural resources and things like that, and or even activities turning natural resources into products. And this is especially the case in developed countries, where a large portion of the business or economy is consisted of manufacturing of finished goods, such as automobiles and telecommunications. Well, despite the difference, though, Jia Yi's policy has modern implication. The key point of Jia Yi's proposal is that consumption must be consistent with production of wealth. But of course, although certain countries, they don't necessarily produce enough food themselves, but they must exchange with manufactured goods and services. So whatever the type of economy is, an important governance principle is to open the sources of capital for the people. This is the policy suggested by Cao Cuo to the emperor. He said, the great economic achievement of the past sage kings was not because the government put the food in their mouth and clothes on their body, but simply because the government had opened the source of capital for them. The source of capital refers to the ways through which people generate their own capital and income. So in today's economic language, it means that the government should support people establishing their own livelihood by giving them access to skill training, business information, tools, facilities and markets and platforms, etc. The concept of capital is easily understood for entrepreneur or independent farmers. But what about those who do not own any tools or business as such? Well, in this case, capital refers to soft skills and experiences that allow people to contribute positively to the economy and be compensated. As we mentioned earlier, wealth is the discounted value of future cash flow. Because a person's soft skill can very well be an asset, it makes sense for the government to open the access to people to acquire skills and increase their earning potential.